New 2026. Tax laws are shocking the property market. If you've been waiting for Australian house prices to finally cool down, this might be the biggest property shake-up in years. The government has just changed negative gearing and capital gains tax rules, and investors are not happy. Some experts say prices could fall, others say rents will rise, and first home buyers are stuck asking one question: will this finally make housing more affordable? Because right now, a lot of Australians feel completely locked out of the market. And honestly, this is one of the biggest housing debates we've seen in decades. So here's exactly what changed, what it means for first home buyers, and why the next 12 months could completely reshape the property market in Australia. The biggest change is this: negative gearing tax benefits are being phased out for established properties. From now on, investors only keep the full benefits if they already owned the property before May 12th. Or if they buy brand new builds from next year onward. At the same time, the government is also removing the current capital gains tax discount system and moving back toward taxing real gains above inflation. Now, if that sounds technical, here's the simple version. For years, investors received major tax advantages for buying property, especially existing homes. And many first home buyers felt like they were competing against people with bigger borrowing power and better tax benefits. That's why the government says these reforms are designed to level the playing field. But here's where things get interesting. Not everyone agrees this will actually help. Some real estate agents are already saying investors are starting to pull back. One agent even said this could be the nail in the coffin for some investors. And honestly, you can kind of understand why. Imagine paying higher interest rates, higher holding costs, and now losing tax benefits as well. A lot of investors may decide it's simply not worth it anymore. Now, according to Treasury estimates, these changes could slow house price growth by around 2%. Some economists think prices could drop closer to 5%, depending on the city. But here's the important part. Most headlines are missing. Even if prices fall 5%, that doesn't suddenly make homes cheap, especially after years of massive price growth across Australia. For many first home buyers, affordability is still the biggest challenge. And that's where this becomes emotional, because there are thousands of Australians right now doing everything correctly: saving deposits, cutting spending, working extra hours, and still feeling like home ownership keeps moving further away. One single mum interviewed basically said, "This feels too late." And I think a lot of Australians probably relate to that feeling. Now, the Commonwealth Bank's chief economist also weighed in on these changes, and his comments were really important. He said investor demand will likely drop, but he doesn't expect a market crash. Instead, the bank expects a softer market with slower price growth. Previously, they expected house prices to rise around 5% next year. Now they think it could be closer to 3%. That's a pretty noticeable slowdown. But here's what first home buyers really need to watch: interest rates, because these tax changes are happening at the same time rates are rising. And when borrowing power falls, housing markets usually cool down naturally. That combination could finally remove some of the heat from the market. But there's still a risk here. If too many investors leave the market at once, rental supply could tighten, and that could push rents even higher. The government believes rent increases will stay relatively small, but critics argue renters and young Australians could still end up paying more while trying to save deposits. So basically, this policy is trying to solve one problem without creating another, and that's incredibly difficult in housing, especially after decades of rising prices, population growth, supply shortages, and investor-driven demand. Now, personally, I think this is the part most people misunderstand. These reforms are not designed to suddenly make housing cheap overnight. That's not realistic. What they're really trying to do is slow the market down enough so wages and savings can finally catch up a little. And honestly, for many first home buyers, even a slower market would feel like a huge relief right now. But whether this actually works long term, that's the real question. Because Australia's housing crisis wasn't created in 1 year, and it definitely won't be fixed in one budget. But one thing is clear: the property market is entering a very different phase now. Higher rates, lower investor incentives, and growing pressure on affordability. And if you're a first home buyer, the next 12 months could create opportunities we haven't seen for years. So keep watching closely.